I saw the rake while on drugs. I saw the rake while on drugs. Night after things get very, very strange. 100% not a fake story. Long ass text. But please read, it's very important to me. Before I start this, I want everyone to understand, this is in no way a creepypasta or a fake story. This is my genuine experiences over the past 2 nights. And you can look at my post history and see that I've never frequented this subreddit. I have no other reason to post here. It started on Tuesday night. I am 17 years old and live in England. Me and a lot of friends went to our mate's house overnight for a party, basically. Everyone had weed, some people had alcohol, and others, including myself, had MDMA. I, along with many of my friends, had 2.5 pills of MDMA, and the night was great. At around 1:30 a.m.-ish, I was the first to try and go to bed. I turned my lights off in the room. It was pitch black. In the events leading up to this point, I had done many things throughout the night. One of them that stands out to me, and a friend walking around the very large forest that is at the bottom of my friend's garden. It was a great experience. It's owned by the next door neighbors. However, it has lots of huge trees, and we were going around there at night. We were just talking and walking around this little trail for a good hour or 2. Remember this point. Once I was in bed with the lights off, everything was pitch black. Couldn't see a thing. I wasn't insanely pilled up. However, I was on a bit of a come down while trying to sleep. I opened my eyes for a good 10 seconds, and I swear to God, the rake just faded into existence in front of my eyes somehow. I remember my vision just suddenly getting better, even in a tiny pitch black room. We were in a motorhome. His house is having renovations. I could make out the room I was inside, but only the walls of the room. I couldn't see the door or the light switch or anything else. Only other thing I could see was the rake at the top of the room clinging to the wall. He was gray, about 5'2" and hairless, bald. I stared at him for a considerable time. I was on drugs. I wasn't as scared as I would normally be. And I swear to God, the fucker looked right back at me and stared back. He had eyes that were just circles with a dot in, not human at all. If I remember rightly, he also grinned at me, and I saw some very long, sharp teeth. I shouted my friend, who I heard outside the door, and he came in and turned the light on, and it vanished as soon as he did so. Once again, I repeated the process of turning the light off and tried to get some more sleep. However, intrigued as I was, I looked again for him, and once again, after about 10 seconds of having my eyes open, he faded into the room again, same spot as before. One difference is, when I looked at the spot after the light had been turned off, he faded in, but when I looked for a second time after the light had stayed off, he was still there in the same position. I put my head under my covers. I was scared, and then looked again. He was still there, but if I looked after the light had been turned off and on, he faded in after a while. This story is getting too long, but basically, yeah, he was in the room with me, and I actually saw him climb up the wall, no joke. I could hear his footsteps. However, I thought this was the footsteps of the people outside the door. I slept in another room that night, and he didn't appear in that room. There's more to it, but as I said, this is getting long. On to the morning afterwards. I got back home the morning after and talked to one of my mates while playing on the PS4. I explained completely in detail what I'd seen, and partway through describing what he actually looked like, my friend stopped me and told me, "It sounds exactly like I am describing the rake." I didn't know anything about the rake before my friend had told me. I'd never even heard of him or anything like that. This is the point where I started shitting bricks a little bit. I Google imaged the rake, and some pictures weren't exactly how I saw him, but some of them were bang on. It was very, very creepy. After this, we started weighing up all the possibilities for what happened, and we, over time, put it down to hallucinating from a mix of MDMA and weed. The reason for this was because of the way the rake faded into existence, and after 10 seconds of looking about the room, I suddenly had a visualization of the room I was inside, and the rake. As I also mentioned, the footsteps. The creature moved exactly in time with the footsteps I was hearing, but if I remember rightly, these footsteps were coming from people outside my room. I cannot confirm or deny that one, but I wasn't thinking where the footsteps were from at the time. Zoom ahead to last night, Wednesday night. Me and the same friend from the PS4 went out to smoke some weed, basically as we do daily. We went out fairly late at night, around 9, half 9 or 10. We went to the local park. But understand that this is a large family park, with a lake and 3 or 4 large fields, a swimming center and 2 children's park. It's not as huge as I'm making it out to be, but it's big. I live in a small English town. Now, when we got to the park, we went to a usual spot we said as called Mud Mound. It's got a couple benches and then a little tree-covered log where we sit. It is quite small. Upon getting there, we saw smoke and sparks coming from behind a large tree that sits right next to this mud mound area. I went over first, and the tree was on fire on one side. There was a log next to the tree, and one end of the log was hot as hell and just burning forever. However, the tree itself was hollow on one side. The tree wasn't actually on fire, apart from one little corner had a flame for a long time, but the inside of the tree itself was blazing hot. The whole inside of the tree was just bright red. I actually took a picture of it because I thought it was cool. Obviously, me and my friend understood this is not something that could be done with a lighter or matches or something. We had no explanation for this. I called 999, the local fire department came down in a fire engine, and I cycled over to them and guided them over to the tree. I gave them a bit of information as to what we saw, and then left them to it. We went over to the other side of the lake, to another bench, smoking weed, didn't want to go near police or anything like that, and at this point, it was about 10:15 or 10:30 at night. It wasn't pitch black, but was dark. However, we could see the firemen looking about the area with torches for a good 45 minutes, almost like they couldn't find a reason behind the fire. So we forgot about it and got to smoking our joints. Now, this is where things got pretty weird. We'd been smoking about quite some time now, 30 minutes or so, before we heard what sounded like a man groaning very loudly. It sounded like he was on the outskirts of the park, but his voice was moving over time. We did hear some people talking, but the shouting was very standout. It came and went, but when it came, he repeatedly shouted about 3 or 4 times before it went away for about 5 or 10 minutes, then repeat. I had 3 possible reasons for what it was. 1, a crackhead, but this would be a very, very rare occurrence in our town. We live in a nice town. 2, someone had been stabbed. Once again, very rare occurrence, but the way he was groaning sounded like he was in extreme pain or something like that. 3, drunk kids. However, this sounded like a fully grown man shouting, not a teenager or kid. This is mainly where this part ends. We were obviously quite confused about the groaning and shouting noises, but we didn't investigate it or anything like that. One important fact you should know is that we have been smoking weed daily for a considerable amount of time, over a year now. Our tolerances are both extremely high, and gone are the days where we would get absolutely high as a kite. We felt normal, but just chilled out and mellow as we usually do. Another thing, the park we were in is the park we have visited to smoke weed 80% of the times we have been out. We have been in this park at all sorts of times, from 7 a.m. all the way to 2 a.m. in the morning. This is the first paranormal experience I have had in my lifetime. The time of hearing the groaning and shouting was around 11 p.m., and another note about it is that it was coming in the general direction that the field where the tree on fire was. I know this story has been long, but it's not something I can sum up in just a few words. I want answers, and I need detail to get them. As well as all this, please understand, I'm not at all faking the story, it is completely real. However, I have never been one that believes in paranormal activity. Neither has my friend, but these things we heard and saw were very, very strange. Please give me some legit answers or replies, if anyone has them, not just, he's coming for you or something like that. My dog wanted me to open the front door last night. My dog freaked me out last night. My husband and I got home late after midnight from a movie, and we let her inside the backyard. After a bit, she started barking, which she usually does when she wants to be let in, so I let her inside. But it sounded a little different. She then changed to the front of the house, head down, barking. Her body position was a little weird, but I figured a neighbor, animal, whatever was in the street, or a driveway making noise. I live in the city. I told her it was bedtime and to stop, which she usually does, but she was oddly insistent, and so I walked to the front of the house with her, and she looked out the window. It's what I usually get her to do. She shows me, I say it's fine, we go to bed, no biggie. But when she looked out the window, she stopped barking and went to the door in front of where I was standing, and was like, okay, open the door, like she does when someone she knows is at the door. I was like, there's no one at the door, and she was acting like someone was on the other side, and I needed to open it, not barking, just wagging and pointing. My blood ran cold, something which doesn't normally happen. Something was telling me to open the door, even my dog was. But it was after midnight. My husband and I were both inside. The only other person whom I know she'd be cool with coming in the door wouldn't randomly be at our door after midnight. There was this odd moment of staring at the handle, afraid and perplexed, just filled with this eerie sense of something being on the other side of the door. I flipped on the porch light, so if it was a person, they'd know we were home and aware, and walked back to the bedroom. My dog followed, following back and forth a few times. Not barking, but just trying to get me to go back. My hub said, no ghosts are allowed in this house. We don't want your creepy friends here, he told the dog. I then called her a bimbo, and she sulked back to her kennel. Anyways, it was probably nothing, just my dog being a weirdo. But it sure freaked me out. The sound of a tortured soul. This incident took place on Tuesday the 26th of February 2008 at around 2 a.m. The time is slightly hazy, can't be certain, which was also around the time of an earthquake near me that measured 4.7 on the Richter scale. However, this earthquake apparently was at 12:56. I mentioned this because it may be connected, although I'm not sure how. Anyways, I was in bed when I woke up to a noise which, at first, I thought was a cat. However, as I began to listen more intently, it almost morphed into a human sound. Now, the best way I can describe the sound was like a slow wailing and groaning, and the first word that came to my mind was grieving. It literally sounded like a tortured soul, but bloody terrifying. I remember lying with wide eyes thinking, I can't believe I'm hearing this. It was the worst sound I'd ever heard in my life, and also the first time I've ever felt genuine fear. After what felt like ages, it became two, as though there was two of these tortured souls. I must point out that it was coming from beyond the walls, which would be my neighbor's house. The first logical explanation that came to my mind was one of the neighbors having a night terror of some kind. Although listening to it, I couldn't imagine any human being making a noise so loud and completely horrifying. Eventually it stopped, and of course, I couldn't sleep after that. Some people have said it may have been foxes. I YouTubed their sounds, and whilst yes, they do sound terrifying, it was not that kind of noise. Also, my area is not prone to any other wild animals. Some say it was sleep paralysis. However, I do remember moving around in bed and covering my ears to block the sound out. And to give you an idea of how much it affected me, I couldn't sleep properly for at least 6 months after. It took me a very long time to relax when I was in bed, as I dreaded hearing it again. I'd love to know what anyone thinks of this. A phone call that never happened. I'm a little reluctant to post this. I guess I'd say that I'm generally a little romantic about the paranormal. I love the idea of it. I enjoy being scared and messing around with the idea of ghosts and other creatures out there. But I am overall quite realistic, grounded, and cynical. But something has been playing on my mind the past few days, and I need to get it off my chest. On Tuesday night, I was leaving work quite a bit later than intended. As I head out, I plugged in my iPhone headphones and wrapped up in my big coat and scarf. I would be walking along the River Thames. It has been freezing the past few weeks. I decided to call my mom to let her know I'm heading home late. I know living with your parents in your early 20s suck, but the London housing market is a joke right now, and I can't really afford a place of my own. The phone rings about 3 times, and then it clicks to answer. There is the most unsettling, distorted, warbling sound on the other end of the line. It sounded like a really deep moan, but garbled enough, like it's coming from underwater. Combined with the bracing wind from the river, I stop in my tracks. I can't make out any words or tell if there is actually a voice, but my headphone volume is up really high, and the noise freaks me out so much that I end the call. I think about it for a few minutes and rationalize that maybe, it's probably my mom's phone bugging out. It really is an old phone and does all kinds of crazy shit. So I call back. It rings about a dozen times, but no answer, and then goes to her normal voicemail. She's old. She might take a while to get to the phone. I call again, same issue. A dozen rings, no answer, voicemail. I try this about 4 more times, and I'm starting to panic, thinking maybe she was actually drowning on the phone, and it was the last time I'll ever hear from her. So I call my dad. He answers after a while, and everything is fine. I ask to speak to my mom, and she's fine too. I asked her if she answered her phone, and she apologizes, saying she hasn't been able to find it all day. I get home just over an hour later. She found her phone. She had left it upstairs, in her bedroom, on silent. There's nobody else in the house apart from my dog. I explain what happened, and she admits it's creepy. We go to check our respective call logs. All of my unanswered calls are listed, but not the answered one. It definitely rung a few times and then clicked to answer. Same on my phone. All the unanswered outgoing calls listed, but no successful calls. Maybe I'm being too neurotic, but the more I think back on this, the more it seems like a horrible start to a ghost story. Can anyone offer a rational explanation? The purse incident. So, I work as a supervisor at a call center for one of the big small package delivery companies. We handle a lot of Rake customers looking for their late and lost packages. So here is where my story starts. I have an agent that works for me, let's call her Kaya, that spoke with a woman who had a daughter that recently passed unexpectedly. She had gone to her daughter's out-of-state home, packed up her stuff, and shipped back to her house. One of the packages was lost in transit, and the woman was extremely distraught. A small part of my job is to look for or lost and found to locate packages that somehow managed to go missing. The lost box contained a family Bible that had the family tree and her daughter's name in it. The Bible meant a great deal to this woman and begged Kaya to find it. Kaya brought the request to me, but I was really busy and didn't get around to looking for it that day. Kaya was pretty upset by the request to me, and this whole story that she was bugging the crap out of me until I dropped everything, and against the odds, I located the missing box. Now, You have to understand, our lost and found contains thousands and thousands of boxes. I sent the box to the woman so that she would receive it the next day. The woman was so happy with Kaya that she wanted to send her a gift. She purchased a Louis Vuitton handbag for her daughter's birthday, but her daughter had passed before she had a chance to give it to her. She felt that Kaya deserved this purse because she really did do everything she could to get that Bible to her. I remember teasing her, telling her that it was a haunted purse, and she was getting a haunted purse. So, anytime a gift comes in for an agent, the department manager has to open it first, I guess for safety and ethics issues. So our boss received the purse and decided she was going to make a big presentation to acknowledge the agent's hard work. There was a lot going on in the office, so the manager kept delaying the presentation. 2 weeks go by, the manager still has the purse in her office, and my agent still doesn't know the purse arrived. So the manager goes on vacation, leaves the purse in her office. Tuesday comes along, and I'm sitting with another supervisor, listening to the agents as they take calls. Someone walks up to us, so they are standing inches behind us, and whispered, "Excuse me." I turn around, but there was nobody there. The other supervisor throws her headset down and said something was tickling her ear. We were both a little freaked out by this. So, the next day, I was at my desk, working on my computer, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a woman in a white dress, standing at her agent's stat board. When I turned my head to see who it was there was no one there. Mind you, this is happening in a call center, with hundreds of people around. I was working nights, so as it gets late, I have fewer and fewer agents, until there was just a handful of us left. I was chilling, but still feeling a little ill at ease because of the odd things that had happened. My most flamboyant agent starts shouting my name. He said, "Hurry, something is wrong with my computer." I walk over and the screen is flipping quickly from page to page to page. His mouth is sitting unmoved on his desk, but the cursor is moving around rapidly. I grab the mouse, but it won't respond. The computer is acting as if someone is controlling it, but the pages were flipping randomly. The office printer is right behind his desk, and I see that page after page after page is printing. I couldn't get the computer to respond, so I held the power button in for what seemed like an eternity. I kept thinking I was going to be electrocuted. The computer finally shut down. The agent moved to another desk, and I restarted his computer. It was fine. I went over to the printer, picked up the printed pages, and placed them on my desk. Now, I had a lot of work to do, so I finished up the evening and went home. The next morning, I took a look at the printouts, and it was a bunch of email screenshots and black pages. I took it over to a coworker who knew nothing of the occurrences and asked him if he noticed anything odd about the printouts that were displayed in front of him. He looked confused but said, "Yeah. If you look, Kaya's name is highlighted in every email screenshot." Now, that shook me a little bit. I went to the acting manager, told her what had happened. I was worried she would think I'd lost my mind. Without saying a word, though, she went into the missing manager's office, got the box with a purse, said, "Congratulations, Kaya," placed the box on her desk, and went about her business. Now, Kaya called the lady to thank her, which I insisted she do immediately. The lady said that she had been concerned that she hadn't heard anything from Kaya, and worried that she did not get her gift. I mean, nothing happened after that in the office, but for a long time, I was nervous in the empty offices at night. I lost my father on Tuesday night, and then this happened. Death fucking sucks. My father passed away on Tuesday night, and it was the toughest thing I've ever had to bear witness to. We were a small family. 2 parents, 2 siblings, my mother, brother, and I decided to pull life support Tuesday night and watch my father go gently into the night. As we stood around and watched him take his final breath, I held his cold left hand, my brother, his right, while Mom gripped his feet over the blanket. His heart rate slowly dropped from the 90s down to 0, and then he flatlined as his heart took its final beat. My mom took notice of the time, 11:27 p.m. We hugged each other, crying, and promised to stay together and get through this. We didn't, however. Notified my brother's wife about his passing, because she was at home with the 3 kids and had just seen Dad a couple hours earlier. We decided we would tell her in person, as we were leaving the hospital shortly afterwards. When we got there, she said the baby's room was extremely cold at around 11:30 p.m. This was moments before she knew he passed. My brother and his wife have 2 children of their own, 2 boys, aged 14 months, and a 7-week-old infant. My dad was a very loving grandfather and adored those 2 boys with the full strength of his love, like only a grandfather could. We told her the news, and everybody sat in the living room downstairs crying, making plans and arrangements, and talking about Dad. During this time, the 2 boys were upstairs asleep until the older one woke up and was crying. My sister-in-law went to check on him and was shocked to find that he had been perfectly wrapped up in his blanket, just the way Grandpa used to wrap him. He also stopped crying before my sister-in-law made it into the room. She didn't wrap him like that when she put him into the bed. In fact, she didn't wrap him at all because he normally just kicks off the blankets anyways. There was no way he wrapped himself up like that. And my sister-in-law swears up and down that's how she found him. She's an honest, straight-shooting person and would definitely never lie about anything like that. Honestly, I think Dad went in there to take care of his grandbaby one more time to let us know he's there and that love endures beyond death.